Welcome back, you guys. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Swadik Mayancha, and this is the Everyday Hero Show, where I bring to you someone in your life or someone in my life that brings us joy, happiness, and all the good things in life. But they do not get the credit that they deserve. And today we have another Texas charge nurse on the show. Johanna, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. So, Johanna, just with the hellos and the niceties, I did want to ask, any New Year's resolutions this year? Anything specific?
Sorry, one more time. That one broke up.
Any New Year's resolutions? Anything special for the new year? How'd you celebrate your new year?
I worked on New Year's Eve, and then I was asleep by 10:30. So my new year was to be rested, which we did. And then my New Year resolution, it's the same one I had last year, but I'm continuing to just be more aggressive with the work-life balance and making sure I'm taking care of both sides.
More aggressive with it. That's a weird way to put that phrase because I don't know what it means really. Are you being more aggressive on the work end, or like being like cutting out anything that's not work or family?
I think it was. Yeah, I think what I mean by more aggressive is last year I was picking up a lot and I was working a lot and my bank account was more happy, but I realized I wasn't as happy, and then my life changed this year as well. So it's become a more about not always like I make enough to do what I need to do. So focus on that. And then in regards to being more aggressive, it's been about trying to find that balance of keeping work at work, and then when I come home, allowing my home to be my home, because I can't pull it all over as much. Like it was too much coming with me, and I realized I have to just kind of let some of it stay and be at peace with what I've done and let go of that.
That's lovely. But you just said that your life changed. Wait, what happened? Like good change, bad change, in the middle change?
No, good change, good change. So for past 9 years, it always had just been me and my husband. And then we brought some kids into our life this year. So it was a big change in regards to we were a family of 2 with a dog. And then we became a family of 4 with a dog. And then we're crazy. So we added another dog because that's just what you should do.
You need 2 of each, right?
Yeah, just make a like a nice even number so we can all keep our evens.
You're crazy. But that makes a lot of sense now with your New Year's resolution. So you think about these things. This is not something you just decide January 1st. Let's go. Okay.
No,
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. So let's get into it. Okay. Johanna, please, who are you? Where are you from? And then why nursing?
Oh, well, I'm Johanna. Who am I? A person just trying to think what all of us are trying to do is just figure out life. The goal we've been asked at our house lately, what we want to be when I grow up. And I said I just want to keep growing up. So the other option was a dinosaur. But I think where I'm from, I'm here in Texas right now, but I born in California, raised in Montana, and then have lived up and down the East Coast before, and then settling back in Texas. So when I graduated with my first degree, which was a bachelor's, I ended up in Texas for a couple of months, and then I joined the military. I was in the Navy and did that for 5 years. So I was on the East Coast. And then my husband's also in the military, so we moved around with him, and then I got my nursing degree there. And why nursing? I thought about so many paths. When I graduated, I had a bachelor's in kinesiology and knew I wanted to work in healthcare, and then found out that a bachelor's in kinesiology really is not going to get you into healthcare, just because I had no experience. And so every time you interviewed, they were like, well, what's your healthcare experience? And I didn't have any. And so when somebody keeps telling you that in an interview, you're like, okay, I need experience. I'm pretty like, just let's do it all the way. So that's why I joined the Navy. I was like, well, I'll get my experience, then fine, I'll find somebody to pay me to do it. And so I did that as a corpsman for 5 years, and I got to work in hospitals and really got to figure out, I thought I wanted to do PT, saw PT, realized it wasn't for me because it's a little too much. They're actually very structured on what they can and cannot do. Like they have a path that's already kind of predetermined. And then I was thinking physician, even dabbled with the MCAT, but also just realized I wasn't ready to give it that full length of commitment. And so I was then nursing PA, and a doctor gave me great advice. And she said, you'll never be happy as a PA because, again, you're always going to be under a doctor. And if you go nurse and then work your way maybe towards nurse practitioner in the future, you can get more independence. And nurses just do have more independence at their job as well because they're carrying out orders, but you also have to take into what you're going to do. So she was like, if those are what you're going between, you're the type of person that you're really going to be happier in the nursing side where you can you can grow and you can find a little bit more independence. They said the PA side, you're always going to just feel the same way as the PT, too stifled. And so took her words to heart and went to nursing school and did it not the way I'd always recommend. I had healthcare experience working in clinics, but then I had never worked at the bedside. And then I graduated. My program was 2 years. And you get an MSN and RN at the same time. And my clinicals were pretty limited. So I was kind of jumping in and just figuring out as I go. But I really enjoy it. I really like caring for people and helping people. I feel that's my most thing. I'm happiest if I'm caring for someone. Like even in college, my friends were like, oh, you're like the mother. I want to make sure everybody gets home. And then like even with my husband, I'm like, he's like, I can take care of myself too. And I'm like, no, I got to make sure everybody's taken care of. So nursing really fills my soul and that I know I'm taking care of people and making sure everybody's settled.
Yeah. Two things. Immediately, I already, like, now I remember why I wanted to have you on. You're just a thoughtful person. I mean, like, you think, you thought about your I just know so many nurses. Well, maybe it's just the American culture. You just get out of high school, they throw you into college. And then by your sophomore year, if you haven't picked a major, it's like you have to just pick something because you will be wasting the rest of your time. So there's just like, for me, I kind of just fell into nursing. And I know a lot of people where their careers, their jobs are very similar. And it sounds like you thought about it prior to just deciding. But before we even get to nursing, right, I do want to rewind the tape a little bit here.
Okay.
You said that you moved around, but you said you went to the East Coast once you joined the military. Was either of your parents in the military or in healthcare?
No. My mom's been in a variety of jobs. She briefly worked as a CNA for I think like 3 years, but that was her only healthcare. I have had cousins in the military, but no, like, and both my grandpas were, but it was more of the times that was like required for them. And I have the joke with a cousin in each other branch, and I went Navy. Can't be the same. You don't want to be like everybody else.
No, you can't. So you had to go to. Are you a good swimmer? I know nothing about the military, but
am I a good swimmer? Let me share. I was actually the thing I was really worried about because I almost went military in college because I liked the ROTC, but they said I had to either get an engineering degree or like a mathematics one to like qualify for a scholarship, and I wasn't going to give that time. Yeah, and that's not my jam. Like engineering, it would be, you really don't want me in charge of that. Like that's just not where I would thrive. But they almost did it then, and then I was thinking about military, and I was like, yeah, you probably have to like know how to swim. So in my last semester of college, I signed up and took a course on swimming, just because I'm a sinker. And as I tell people, I work like 20 times as hard. And then I was all like, oh, I'm prepared. And then it was the easiest swim test. Like you can doggy paddle. However, you can just, you're on a stand, they push you in, you're in like shorts and a t-shirt. You have to swim to one side of the pool and then like prove that you can float on your stomach and float on your back. And then you're done. That was it. The hardest part was you all have to be underwater at the same time. And there's one point people are like kicking and hitting because they're freaking out being that close to people. But yeah, I was really worried about the swimming. And then I never was on a ship. Like,
oh, you never were. So were you like Navy? Is it National Guard Navy or were you like Navy?
I was Navy, but I went hospital to hospital. And then when you're a corpsman in the Navy, they have ships, but it's not always like the most common path to go onto a ship unless you maybe stay in a bit longer, just because the ships only need so many bodies. Like they're very efficient. So you really only need stuff like, even like on a big ship, like a carrier, you need like some corpsmen and stuff to do run areas, but it's a lot more of your specialty things, because you're probably going to have an OR, so you'll have a surge tech, and then you'll have your dental area, so you'll have like probably a dentist, and there's just one corpsman to be like the dental assistant, and then you may have like a couple. It's not going to be a big group. So the biggest part though, where corpsmen I feel are more utilized is the Marine Corps doesn't have a medical, and they fall under the Navy. So the Navy is the medicine for the Marine Corps.
Yep.
Yeah. So my first area where I was up in Bethesda at a hospital, and then they got married up there. And then the rule is, if you're married, the Navy is very good about one person can be deployed and the other can't. So one of us had to go, they call it ship to shore, and the other had to go shore to shore. So then I went to another hospital there at a Marine Corps base in Jacksonville. And then my husband was with an actual Marine Corps unit on that same base. So we were in the same area, but we were in two different groups.
Okay, that makes sense. But explain to me one more time, what does a ship to core and ship to, what is it?
Ship to shore, or if you go shore. So when you're on shore duty, you're usually not in a deployable spot. So for my job as a corpsman, that meant I was at a hospital, and you just normally don't deploy out of a hospital. Every once in a while, stuff will pop up, and they'll be like, "Oh, we need extra bodies."
Are these all VA hospitals?
No, so they're separate.
Okay.
These are full medical treatment facilities, and I mean they are run with a combination of civilians and military. The doctors are primarily all military, and then you get people who live there and they retire and they just keep jobs there, but they're not VA. They're the only one that's a combo that I know of so far that's a combo VA and military one is actually up in Illinois, which was my husband's last area, and they do pair up there. But otherwise, it's a full hospital, and it's just for the military personnel. You very rarely get retirees who go there unless they retired in the area and they're able to get their care there. But it's more focused on a young population. It's very interesting. I think it's a very interesting culture to be in, because I think that was a big shock for me at the bedside too, because I was used to like taking care of people like just in their 20s and 30s, maybe teens, and you're like, oh, you're all older. Like, oh, okay, this is where you've all been. Like, oh, you're much harder to get an IV on than like the 20-year-old.
And so this is another area that I wanted to spend a little bit of time here. And excuse the ignorance, please. But what's the difference between a corpsman and a medic? Because you keep calling yourself a corpsman, but were you also a medic? Are they two different titles?
Okay, so in the Army, they have medics. In the Navy, we're corpsmen. And then the difference is, in the Army, you're always specialized. In the Navy, you're a corpsman first, and then you can get a specialty, or you can stay. I was a quad zero, because I didn't go to, I never deployed or anything like that. So you can get like other designations to like when you go with the Marines. So like before you go with the Marines, you have to go through a Marine like type school, because you're going with the Marines. If you're deploying with the Marines, you are their medic. But if an opportunity arises, you can't take care of someone if you're hurt or injured. So if something happens, you have to be able to be a part of the group and take care of what you need to take care of, because you can't care for someone if you're injured. So whatever you need to do in that situation. So you have to take one more group of schooling just to be able to kind of meet the fitness standards of the Marine Corps, and then like the guns and tactical experiences as well. But my experience was being hospital to hospital, but I stayed as a generic corpsman. I never took a specialty, so they call you a quad zero. But the nice thing about that is you can be put anywhere in the hospital, and then whoever you're working under, you work under their license. So say I'm on a floor, I'm working with nurses, and whatever those nurses feel that they're comfortable with me doing, you can do. And that can include at times maybe possibly giving medication, because you're working under their license. So it's what they train you to do and what they feel is appropriate for you to do. I worked in clinics and I worked with doctors, and so they would train us to do things. And if they felt comfortable with us, we could do those things kind of working under their license. So the Navy has that. That's the difference. Whereas the Army, if you're a medic, you're just a medic. I mean, not just a medic. You have like a very specific job. You can't just go everywhere. Like I worked in the laboratory, I worked in an OBGYN, and then I did sports medicine at the end.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Did you have a favorite? Is sports medicine like actual sports medicine?
It was actually, this is like real sports medicine. Like there was 6 small clinics, 3 major ones, and you saw everybody. They would have their about 10 athletic trainers on staff, and then 3 sports medicine doctors. And you would come in the morning, and the athletic trainers would be there, and the corpsman would help with getting people just like doing physical therapy in a sense, but in a big group. Like the athletic trainers would each see probably 15 to 20 people in 2 hours. And so you're just running around, like they're getting exercise sheets and doing the exercise. But the Marine Corps started doing the thing with sports medicine where they were treating their Marines as athletes. So if your athlete is down, you treat them like that. And so then the sports medicine acted as kind of, I felt like we were a filter to ortho. So you saw us first. And if it was something muscular, could be fixed maybe with just some treatments or like exercises, you did that first. But if you needed surgery, then you would go, you get referred to ortho, because otherwise they're going to have
a million
hundreds of people at ortho, like, oh, I sprained my ankle. And the orthopedic surgeon's going to be like, I don't care.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about because you said that someone, I forgot who you said, told you that you might do well in the military, or it might be a good path for you. But when you were making that decision, were you scared? And then this is for just people out there. So who would you say is a good fit to go to the military pre-college, like during your college years or right after college? Because honestly, Johan, like when I see you, I'm like, you seem like the type of person that would do well in the military, but I don't know if that was because you went there already, or if this was just your normal temp, like you're just you, who you are.
Just who we are.
Well, please explain, because I wanted to know, were you scared? Because for me, honestly, the military seems like a scary place. It's like big, tough guys yelling and screaming. There's guns. It makes me nervous even thinking about it. And so, were you scared? And who would you suggest would be a good person, a good fit for the military in that age range?
I was not too scared until I got to boot camp, and then I would say I spent the first 2 weeks petrified, just because people, I thought, I did sports through high school, and I did sports in college.
Sports.
And I've had people yell, oh, I did gymnastics growing up, and then I did in college, I rowed, I did crew. So I'm very stubborn, and so they told me I was too short to be a rower, and so I spent 3 years trying to prove them wrong, and then realized I'm never going to be 5'8" or higher. And so in my last year, I succumbed, and I became the coxswain, where you sit in the front, you steer, and you yell at everybody. Yes. And so I thought with those sports, I've had people yell at me and like tell you like, you're doing it all wrong, or like to motivate you. And I was like, oh, so people are going to yell at you. That's fine. But these are people like yelling at you and like telling you like, you're messing it up, you're doing it all wrong. But eventually you realize that they're yelling for a reason, because it's a large group and you all have to be doing the same thing. Otherwise it's just going to be total chaos. And once you like kind of succumb to that, you realize why these people are telling you what to do. And that was actually my favorite part of the military, is I always knew what I was doing. And if I didn't, someone was going to come and tell me what I needed to do. There's always someone who's telling you what to do and what your next task is going to be. And I'm a very task-oriented person. So it was like right up my alley. I was like, yes, tell me, I'll get that done. Give me another. And I found that very fulfilling. I still would even dream of going back one day. I'm not able to personally, but I really would. I loved it on all that side. But I would say the military is scary, I think, just because it's not unknown and it's kind of like a subculture.
Yeah.
But it's actually, the people are some of the best people I've ever met. And what I really like about it, and I almost wish this at times would come over to the nursing side, they always are looking to be friendly and friends because people are very inviting in that culture. And there's just, it's going to be a lot of turnover. So you're just always accepting of the new group coming in. You're just like, hey, this is how we do it. And they're like, hey, that's how you do it. We're going to roll in. And people just work together really quickly in that way. There's a very good gelling because it's like, yep, going to leave and going to do all that. I would say people who, if you can take direction, it's not going to be a type of person who, you have to be able to go with the flow a little bit, but also still be able to be an alpha when the time comes and be able to direct people. But they really teach you how to do that. I never considered myself an assertive person or very authoritative, but they give you the confidence to eventually be able to do that. And they kind of have to yell at you a lot first and kind of break you down to be like, nope, we're all just going to follow the line. And then they give you that same chance.
So no, that's okay, but I appreciate you saying that because I too have, especially when I was like a newer nurse, I had a really hard time because before I was a nurse, I was a CNA, and then once I became a nurse, I was a nurse at the same place I was a CNA at, and there was all these older lady CNAs, and for a long time, I really did feel like telling my CNA coworkers who are older than me, who I seen as like they were moms, they adults. And for me to give other people orders was something that always came. It was just not natural to me. I know it's a huge question to ask, but do you have any advice as to how do they go ahead and teach you about how to be a leader in the Army? Because what you just said is they yell at you and break you down to then build you back up. You think that's the most efficient, effective way? Or is there something that you've taken from the military? Because I've yet to see you break someone down at work.
I would say the way they taught me to lead, and I think, is that they give you the confidence in it, because when you're getting moved into a role where you are leading people in that role, they let you know that you're ready. And even at times you're like, I'm not ready. Like they kind of push you to like step up. You're like, oh, like they say I can do it. There's that confidence that I've never been asked to do something I couldn't do. Like people always knew you could do it. And so if they're asking you to lead, then it's like, okay, somebody obviously thinks I can handle this. So there's that confidence that somebody's watched you and knows you can handle it. But even in like the boot camp setting, they put you in like small situations where all of a sudden, like, oh, like you're doing like PT, you're working out, like, okay, you're going to take over the count. And it's like, I'm not a very loud vocal person. I don't feel like yelling or doing that's like my true calling. But they're like, oh, they think I can do this. So I will at least give it my best effort because they obviously think I can. And so I always found that in the military, when you moved up into these leadership positions, there were always people very supportive and like telling you what you needed to do, but also like, you can do it. You can handle this. It's not going to be a problem. And if you can't, you can come and ask us, and we can. But you're going to go back and do it. We're just going to see how to do it.
I really do like that. You guys gain your confidence through competence. So you can, because you're right. The only way you can ever do something is that you actually do it, or someone who's really good at it tells you, I see something in you. And it sounds like they do a pretty good job with both of those things. So when you were finished with the military, you said you went straight to do the MSN to RN program, right? MSN and RN program, because you already had your bachelor's degree.
I already had my bachelor's.
Do you see yourself continuing with all of that? Do you see a PhD in your near future? Do you see yourself becoming a nurse practitioner?
This is the big crossroads for me, actually, like that I'm getting closer to, because I always assumed I would come in, do my 2-3 years, go back to school. It always was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to school. Now that I've been in it for a minute, it's not, I mean, it's like been a blink. I'm still a new nurse. I'm only 2.5 in. So I feel like it's still brand new to me. I no longer am quite sure what path I want to take because I thought I really wanted to go and everyone's like, yeah, that's what you're going to do. And I was like, yep, that's my plan. And then I've gotten to a point now where I'm just like, I feel like I'm feeling pulled in different directions and I'm having to really think about it. I'm doing this like fellowship group too, where they're like, oh, like look at all these different roles you could go. And you always hear like nursing is like, oh, you can do anything. Like that's what's great about it. You can go into this and this and this. And I'm starting to see that more and that opportunities are getting closer. And I'm just like, well, what path do I want to do? So I'm trying to have to figure it out. And I met with this coach and she was like, it's time to look at like your core values and like what's important to you and like figure out like if what you're going to go for fills your core values. So not like the money, not like the job, but like if you can get your gratification from that. So I'm having to try to like think to myself, like, okay, like, what is that? Because she was like, what's your favorite part? And I was like, well, I like caring for people. I like being a part of like the team and finding the direction. But she's like, even with other opportunities, you may be able to do that just in another way. You have to like kind of think of it that way. So I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do. I don't know.
So
It's hard.
You said someone, whoever this person was your coach. Like, is this like a rowing club that you're in on the weekends? Or is this?
No, like this is something that they're actually doing through work that I'm doing. It's like,
oh, wow, okay.
That they just started it. Yeah, they just started it, and it's like they have all these opportunities. Like for when you're new grad, you do your new grad course, and then they have things you can after that. Which I didn't know about at the time. They have like a program. Be like, okay, like it's like your Star Trek. Like you can find all these specialties and kind of like work your way to those specialties. But this is for nurses who have now, you've been at the bedside for a couple of years and you're like, okay, I can stay here where I am. But I mean, now I'm looking around and you see management, you see quality, you see stroke, sepsis, like there's all these paths, infection prevention. How do I explore those roles or how do I get over there? And this course is supposed to kind of help you figure out. So there's like different tracks, like there's a leadership, advanced bedside, informatics, and then education. And they're like, you get to explore the track.
I just want to clap it up for work because that's so right. What you said is exactly right. And when you go to nursing school or you talk about nursing with anyone really, they're like, oh my goodness, you could do nursing everywhere and nursing can take you everywhere. But then everyone goes through nursing school and then they just point you into the med surg direction and say, best of luck, right? There really isn't a post nursing school like pathways to success to the other ways outside of bedside nursing unless you go outside for yourself to go look for it. So the fact that work is offering this fellowship, leadership, whatever, sounds fantastic. And I feel like more places should do that. I love that. Like a lot.
No, I really appreciate it because it's exactly as you said. Like when I was in nursing school, I had like an instructor and she's like, yeah, on the weekends, I like sit for the cardiac vest. I just do that every once in a while. And then I'm like working at this derm clinic doing this. And I'm just like, how did she do all these things? Because now I'm here and I'm like, okay, I've been working med surg for 2 years. Nobody's approached me to like learn how to put the cardiac vest on or work in derm. I'm like, maybe I'm not like sitting out there and I'd be like, hey.
No, that's good. And even for the simple things, like I'm a traveler. Like even for that, the first time I got into it was literally just me swinging to the fence and being like, online it says I just need a couple of years experience. I have a couple of years experience. Let me put an application in. And that's how simple it was for me. But I really, really like that. I really, really like that. Because there's so many things in nursing that you can do with just an RN license, right? But that you don't have to do more schooling for, but you just need to know your way in. You just need to find your way in. And like those certifications and all that good stuff. Okay, so now I want to talk about the actual job of you being a nurse. Okay. When did you know you were going to be good at it? When did it click for you? I know you said I like to help human beings, but there's a million ways to do that. Nursing is a very specific way to help people. How did you figure out I'm going to be good at this? Or was it just something that you were like, it just makes sense after being a corpsman for X amount of years?
when I first went into it, I was just like, this path makes sense. I'm just going to do this. I felt actually just very behind the curve when I started, just because my healthcare experience was all clinics. And then, as I said, nursing school, even they're all like, oh, we're putting you at the bedside, you're in these hospitals. And I'm like, I know, I've been in so many hospitals, but I know nothing about like the bedside. And I felt just very behind the curve. And so I really tried to take advantage in that, even when clinicals, of like trying to like learn everything that I could, because like I'm like, I don't know anything about this, and I don't like to not know something. Like that's one of the biggest things that I think has grown me as a nurse, is that it really bothers me if like something happens and I don't have any clue what to do. And so I spent my first year of nursing terrified, because I was like, I don't know what to do. Like something happens, I don't know what to do, but things happen. And then you realize, okay, I can learn what to do, or somebody can show me what to do. And I felt very honored where I worked. The people who were there, like who were my charge nurses, were always supportive. And like anytime you ask them a question, and I asked a gazillion questions, I still ask a gazillion questions. Like you always want to double check and be like, okay, I think I know this is a plan, but let me just double check with someone that this is really how should we be doing it. I found that I just started getting more nosy. And as I got more nosy, and even with other people's problems, I'm like, oh, hey, you got a situation going on? Like, what is it? Like, can I learn? Help? But really, I just want to like know how you're going to fix it without like being involved in the whole situation yet. I just found I got more confident with that, and kind of learning like, oh, like, okay, this happens, we do this and then that. And I kind of grew and loved nursing more in that sense. But I think I needed that time just to kind of figure out how to do everything. And I still don't know how to do everything. Like there's no way every shift someone's like, oh, this is happening. And I'm like, oh, okay. Not quite
Let's
sure
go figure this out together.
Let's take a look together. Maybe we can figure this out. Like something's fallen out, something's appeared.
So when I met you, you were getting trained to be a charge nurse. And then when I left, you were a charge nurse. It seemed like you were already in the swing of charging. Was that something? Because I do know that for there's like a few nurses that are on every floor that you work on that you know. Maybe it's the experience, maybe it's the likability or the relatability that they have to other people, and then maybe it's just management, just like having the eye, like let's do it. Were you looking at being in charge at all, or did someone reach out and let you know this is something you should do? Or is this part of the program, the fellowship thing?
No, okay. I had to be peer pressured into learning to charge. I was precepting, and I loved to precept. I really I found that was like, they wanted, when I, because turnover is high. So sometimes when you're still a new nurse, they're like, oh, you should train people. And I really like pushed back on that for a while first. And I like refused. I was like, no, not till like I hit my 1 year, and then maybe you can talk me into it. But then I started precepting after my first year, and I really enjoyed it. I really like working with other people and kind of like showing them how it goes. And then it was like mentioned like, oh, like you should think about charging. And I was like, nope, I really like being on the floor like this. That looks like too much work, not really what I want to do. And then finally they were like, well, just try a couple shifts of like training. If you hate it, you hate it. And I found I really liked it in the sense that you have to be nosy about like everything going on, which I was already starting to do on the floor. Because as I said, I got to a point where I just wanted to know what everybody else had going on, and was like, oh, what are you doing? Like, what's going on over there? And I felt like, so when I did charge, it was like, oh, like it opened up a whole other viewpoint of like, oh, we're now having to take a kind of a step back and look at everybody in a broader sense, but we're getting to see more of what's going on, and you're in more of these situations. And so I enjoyed that aspect. And then we changed again. And so at first it was just going to be like, oh, still in charge, but we lost people. And then I'm looking around and I'm like,
you're one of the last ones standing.
Hey guys, it's you and me, huh? Like, where did where'd everybody else go?
That seems like how it usually ends up being in a lot of places. It's like, you laugh. So it's yours. It's yours for the taking. Have you been enjoying it so far?
I have been. I enjoyed. I enjoy, as I said, I like the group on my floor a lot. So I find like working with them, and then we have the travelers, so we've had really good travelers so far. So I enjoyed that, and as I said, I really like being at that next kind of step back of just kind of seeing how everything's working, and it makes me realize like things that like on the floor I'd be like, oh, this is so stupid. Like I don't know why like they're bothering me about this. It's 7 o'clock at night, and she's asking me like why I haven't finished charting on all my lines yet. Like I'm gonna get to it. Now I'm back here like, oh my gosh, like why wasn't I like getting that done very first thing? Like these people, or like people are asking me for help, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was bothering them all the time. Like how did they manage with the questions? And then people are asking you things, and you're just like, I don't know, we can figure it out for sure. Like so, it's about kind of figuring. I've really enjoyed the challenge of having to figure things out more because people are coming with you to questions, which means they've already exhausted other options. So it's like, oh, my turn. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so I like the challenge of that.
Oh, good, good. I do want to. I ask people what they usually their favorite thing is about nursing. Um, and I'm gonna let me just leave it at that. What like do you have a favorite thing? Like when you go to work, if you could spend the majority of that day doing a single task, if it's the med pass, if it's the teaching, if it is the precepting, what would you say is your favorite part about nursing?
My favorite part is the interactions with the patients where you're actually learning about them, because my favorite part of nursing overall is that we're taught to look at it from like the whole person, which I sometimes you feel gets lost. And so my favorite part on nursing is to ask my patients questions and kind of learn about them, and maybe learn about more of what we've got going on, because eventually we're going to get to a point where they have to discharge. So if we're going to that, like where are they living, where are they from, like what kind of things do we have going on. So I find having that time to make those connections is like my favorite. And it's usually in the morning. Sometimes it's during the med pass, but usually it's after, because like you're just trying to like get through your med passes, and it's not really the time to like, let's have a 15-minute conversation about your cat. Like it's just not the time.
It's just not the.
But yeah. I do want to come back because I do want to come back to this. So I found like, but my favorite part is probably actually more towards my middle of my shift. I like the best time when I could just finally round on people and like really try to get to know them better. And I found like my interactions were better with them after that too. But I just really enjoyed that part of making that connection with people and really trying to figure out what they've got going on. Like, why are we here? What's going on?
I really do. I really do. Ditto. I'm a talker. That's why I have this show. Yeah. I love my talking, right? So I could talk to anyone's ear off. So I too myself enjoy that the most. When I was in high school, we took that test of like, what would you grow up to be? And mine was like coach, teacher, nurse, teacher, coach, nurse, something like that. So it's just that kind of interaction with the people I'm caring for, even with my coworkers, especially. It's good. I enjoy it. I'm happy being a nurse. I really am. Yeah. Okay, so I have this portion of the Everyday Hero show called Nurses Are Human Too, because I feel like human beings, especially during this pandemic, they just thrown us to the wolves. It's like, you guys are nurses. You deserve to be out there dealing with the craziest thing that's happened to us in like the last 2 decades. But I say it's nurses are humans too, because we forget that all the time. And I did also want to talk to you about you said your life-changing process of adding to your family. I just want to leave it open-ended there and allow you to explain what that process is, because, oh my God, that's such a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, so like with the big life changes they said is we welcome kids into our home, but it's been a journey for us. I mean, I don't know what it's been for me. I have some cousins who are adopted too, but when I was growing up, I was just always like, I was dead set on like 2 things, and nobody ever believed me, but like they truly did happen. I always told people, I'm like, when I ever get married, like I'm not doing this whole wedding thing. I'm eloping. Like just y'all will just find out when y'all find out. And then I said, oh, I definitely did. I got married on a Tuesday. a Tuesday in Maryland at a courthouse. She was wearing a purple leopard headband, and it was just me and him and her. And I always told people I was going to do that, and they were like, "No, you're going to have a big wedding." I was like, "Nope, that just doesn't appeal in any way." And then as I got older, I was like, "Nope, I've seen other people. That's too stressful. I'm not going to do that. Everybody's a little too crazy sometimes. Don't want it." But I always also was always kind of adamant that I was going to adopt. And then as I got older and like thought about it more, I was like, there's just so many kids already in the world that need families and need homes that I just didn't want to. I've never wanted to explore any other route. That's always how I knew I was going to grow my family. And then when I married my husband, he was kind of on board, but I really sold him on it. And then we kept talking about it. But like we were both in the military, and then he was in the military. We were moving every 3 years. It wasn't the right time. And then we finally came to Texas, and we're like, okay, we're actually going to stay here for at least, a minute or two. So let's just actually go for it. And then COVID hit, and it was like, oh, now we definitely have all like time. We're at home. Like, why aren't we going to just try to do all this stuff? And we'd always been very intimidated by the process because I thought it was just going to be so much. Like it was going to be too difficult. Like maybe like they have to make it like super difficult. It was somewhat time consuming, but not as difficult as I thought. It was just, it took time, and you had to fill some things out and take some courses. But I felt like when did we start? November of 2019, we started taking our true courses, and then got our house licensed by February, and then had kids in the house a month later. And it was just blink.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wait, that is kind of quick.
And apparently that can be, it just kind of depends on what you want to open up to. There's different routes you can open up to. So you get to kind of choose your path. You can do foster or foster adopt or just adoption. Now, people who focus on just adopting, they usually don't get placed that fast because everything has to be clear and legally done. That they're going to be placed with you for 6 months, and you're going to adopt at the end of the 6 months, and that's just how it's going to go.
So this is a great time for me to ask. Can you please explain the difference between the three? The foster, the foster adopt, the foster adoption.
Yeah. So as I said, adoption is you're only going to adopt. You're not interested in fostering in any way. The intent is you will be placed with children or a child who is legally free and clear to be adopted, and you're getting placed with them. And you may do some meetings. They'll maybe do some visits because they might be already in a foster home. Usually they're already in a foster home or a foster group care environment. And you do the family does some meetings, and you kind of meet the kid and they meet you, and it's kind of decided they look at their case manager looks at your home study, and it's does this family a good match? And then that can take a couple months to kind of process through where then they're placed at your home, and then 6 months later you can adopt. That's the adoption route. And then also that can be the same with with infants. A lot of people want to adopt infants.
Infants,
yeah. On the opposite side is you could just do just foster, where you are offering either emergency placement, where you're taking kids in, they're calling you maybe in the middle of the night, calling you and hey, I need to drop these kids off in 3 hours. But you may not be able to do that long term. You're just okay, yeah, I can take them for 3 or 4 days until they can get them into another home where they can be settled for a little bit longer. Or you can be a foster where they place them and you're okay, we'll have them for months. And you're always knowing when you're fostering in any sense, even if you're fostering to adopt, the goal of fostering is reunification. It's not for them to permanently always be a your family. Whereas adoption, the reunification is no longer on the table. So it's not an option, because that's why you're doing the pure adoption. There's the combo where it's the foster to adopt, where you're fostering and still working towards that reunification, but there's a chance that might not work out, and then it may be able to become legally to be adopted.
That sounds like an emotional roller coaster. Jesus Lord, that last one. That sounds like an emotional roller coaster.
That's
My
what we
goodness.
chose.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, good for you, but I'm sorry. Yeah,
No.
that must be tough. So the way you explain it is that you guys just have to take a few classes, and these classes are just to make sure that you guys don't are like crazy people, right? Or is it just this is
Basic,
yeah, right?
yeah, crazy people. And then also it's a big thing is also your parenting style is probably going to be different than if you have that. So there also is like you have to do these kind of parenting courses on like they call it trust-based relational interventions, TBRI. And it's a different way of parenting because you have to realize that this person who's coming into your home, you haven't been with them since the beginning potentially. You don't know what their experiences are. So imagine, you go into a home and now you're being told you're going to have to live here and the food's all different. Okay, I've never eaten any of this. I don't like any of this. The people are different. They don't know you. You don't know them. So it's about building the trust. So there were things I hadn't even thought about. Like it wouldn't have occurred to me that they teach you and they're like, okay, like you may want to have like fast food bags because some kids are only used to eating things that come out of fast food bags. Now, it may not be that you go to those fast food restaurants, but that you have the bags, you can put the food in it and be like, okay, you can have this out of here. Also allowing kids to have food. Food was always, I don't know, food was the big part of this training that stuck with me. I think it's because I'm a feeder. Like that's how I show my love is like, I'm going to make you food and you must eat it and you must enjoy it. And then I'm going to know you're happy. Like, and even if you're like, I'm not hungry, like, no, I'm still going to make you food. Like, let me sit down. So it's like having snacks available and making sure it's always available and then letting them know like they can come and go and take the snacks however they want. And then like things you may frown upon, like, oh, if people are hiding food in their rooms, like, oh, that's usually something, like your parents were like, no, we don't do that. But realizing that maybe they were in a situation where they didn't know where their food was coming from. So it's comforting for them to know they have food in their room. So being like, eat the snacks in your room. That's fine. Can I have you put them somewhere else? So it's just a lot of making you realize that like, you're not going to know all their experiences, but to come at it with more empathy and not just try to make people conform because they're not going to.
This is going to sound super selfish from the perspective of the people looking to foster or adopt. Is it all on the parents or the future parents or just the foster parents? Is it all? Do they get to choose, or are you just like thrown into a pool and when your name gets called, you get like the next kid on the list? I hate to talk about it like that, but like,
Yeah.
how much say do you have? Yeah.
So this is the part I had questions about too, because we were like, how will we know? Like if you're gonna like pair. So part of putting your foster packages, they do a home study on you where someone, usually a psychologist, I think, or social worker, spends about like 2.5, 3 hours interviewing you and all the people in your household and asking you like, how were you raised? What were your styles of punishment? What is your intention? What would you be thinking? And like, what kind of kids are you looking for? What behaviors will you not find acceptable? Which ones are you open to? Which again wasn't something I thought about. I was like, yeah, kids, be great, we'll figure it out. But it was like, oh, like you have to think about things like what they've been exposed to and then who you're going to have around them. And if that's going to be something that you're able to support them in. So like, violence, if they've been violent or been around violence, is that something you're going to be able to handle? If not,
So
like something like that. So that you do all these things. So they kind of build an understanding of you and your house and what they think you can tolerate and what you express that you're open to. And you do express like, hey, are you open to just one? Are you open to siblings? If you're open to siblings, like how many siblings? And you kind of got to look at your house and be like, well, I've got 2 rooms, 3 rooms. I could figure it out. And then they ask you what ages you're open to, which for us initially, we said we were open from like 2 to 11. I don't know why we chose that. We really would have been open to anything, but that's kind of what we were originally saying. And then we were always saying, oh yeah, we're open to siblings, but then you have to find out, how many siblings, and it can be hard. on that side, because some groups are 4, some groups are 6. Like you just don't know. So you put your whole package together of your, like, what you're open to and like what your experiences are and what your home is and where you are, and you put that all together, and they're looking at it, and then you have a caseworker who's literally just looking at like child placement lists, and they see things and be like, hey, I saw this child, I was thinking maybe they'd be a match, and then you get to read, like, maybe it's a paragraph, maybe it's a little longer, and from that you can say, oh, you know what, I'm interested to like submit our home study, and then that child's caseworker, they look at your home study and they decide if you're a good match, and then you could be, depending on what the need is, they could be moving into your house right away or waiting. But that's kind of that foster to adopt group. I think if you're like a true foster and you're like the emergency placement,
then
it's not going to be, it's just like, this is what your house can take. I'm calling you right now and being like, hey, I've got this. They need to be there in like 3 hours. Can you do it? Wow. And those are the people that really, like, I'm always like, I wish I could do that, but like, I really just don't feel that I could, because I just don't know how I drop everything and be like, 2 hours, sure, like drop off a baby. It's great. Yeah.
Being. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that is like a call to action like I've never heard before. And I say this with the most respects to both parties, but I always thought that nursing was very like, it was like being a professional mom. And I don't mean to gender it, being a professional parent, right? Like, I feel like nursing is like being a professional parent, and like fostering and adoption is like the ultimate version of that. And so, but the thing that I want to understand with you, because when you are a nurse, and obviously you get the blurb, and you told me about the whole process of like giving you a list of things you're comfortable for and would be a good match for you. But as a nurse, when you walk into a patient's room, after you get your report and find out that this is a good match for me, right? And there is a tension between you and the patient, between you and the child. I feel like how, I don't want to say, like, what is the process if it doesn't work out? If the match doesn't work out? And how horrible would, I just feel like, how do you say this isn't working out and still feel like not a total asshole on the play? It's a big decision to make, to foster, to adopt. But if it doesn't make sense to you when it's happening, I feel like you continuing with it might be worse than you saying, respectfully, this isn't a good match. What's that process like? I don't, if you know much about it.
I haven't like personally experienced it, but they do like tell you about that. Like there could be an instance where it's a placement and then it doesn't work out, whether you're not able to fulfill, like, it's not even maybe just even the emotional needs, but like maybe there's education needs or therapy needs, and it's just you're not able to provide what the child needs. Yes. And so I think the big thing really is, if a situation would like that to occur, personally, I would have to realize that I'm the adult and they are the child. And if I am realizing as the adult that I cannot fulfill their needs, then I'm not doing this for the right thing, and you need to let your agency would know. And then they may try to work with you and like see if they can provide resources and help. They do try to provide a lot of help. So like, I would say like my agency has done a really good job of that. Like they let you know, like they're checking in every month, and you're not just like, sent out there, like these kids are paired with you and then you're just like on your own. Yeah. Caseworkers are checking in, making sure everything is settling in. Maybe there's some like bumps, they're trying to help you settle it out. They may not, you know what I mean? So there could be that, but there are situations where they have to look and be like, I'm not able to provide and what this child needs or these children need. And so then that case, they might be like, okay, from my understanding, they'll be like, okay, then they won't, it's not usually an immediate, I don't think, but they try to find a better fit and someone or some group or wherever can fulfill the needs. But for me, I think it's just the biggest thing is realizing that you're the adult and they are the child, and that you are supposed to be fulfilling their needs, and it's not them fulfilling your needs. So you shouldn't go into it being like, I need to be loved, I need to be appreciated, because that shouldn't be why, in my opinion, that shouldn't be why I'm doing it, because I'm an adult. I've already had my experiences, and I hope that I can learn to find out where I need to find those things. You're supposed to be trying to provide that same relationship for that child or children. and trying to give to them. Like, how can I fill your cup? This is a moment where it's not about me all the time. You still have to take care of yourself though, because it's like I tell people when I feel that they're caring for their parents, stuff like that, be like, hey, I can tell you're stressed. Remember, to care for someone, you still have to care for yourself. Because if you're not, then you're going to become a shell, and you're not going to be able to fulfill anybody's needs because you're not taking care of yourself first. So there does still have to be that. But overall, realizing you're the grown up in that situation, you're the adult, and you need to be able to speak up and say, it's not fitting. I'm not fulfilling what they need. And we need help, or we need to figure out somewhere better for them to be able to get everything they need.
I love that. And this is not just you, but thank you for what you're doing. But I like to all the foster parents, families, adoptive parents, all of them. I mean, all of you guys are doing some. My cousin, I have a family also that went through this process. And then during that foster stay situation, instead of having them go into a facility, we said that we would like have our cousin live with us. I mean, we were the same age, so I grew up with someone who was in a foster care until the end of like high school, college, because they just didn't find a home. And as you might know, what that foster, I don't know if it's like a therapist or a case manager or whatever they call themselves that work with him specifically, they said honestly, the likelihood of getting a new foster family for someone who is in their teens, 15, 16, 17, is when he ended up moving in, is very, very, very difficult. So the fact that he got to live with us was huge, amazing. But like when I was a kid, I just saw it as I'm having my cousin live with me, which is like the coolest thing in the world, right? Best friends like sleep over forever. Like it's awesome. That's like how we saw it. But like just looking back at it, like I'm just like, mom and dad, they already had a bunch of kids and they just welcome a friend over. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And and I hope it was a good thing for him, but that it's just one of the greatest things ever. I mean, it really, really is. A few more questions. Johanna, thank you so much for that. I just have a few more questions. It's going to be a lot lighter than what we were just talking about. But just back to general nursing lifestyle. Do you have a morning routine? And I'm talking about work days. Do you have a morning routine?
I do. It's different now than it was when I was on the floor. But I say as a charge, I've learned that every day is different, because I would love to have my day start the same way.
I'm sorry. I mean, before you get into work.
Oh, before I get into work?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I
do. I don't roll out of bed. I am a person who needs time. I'm kind of a slow mover in the morning. I'm just not very quick. Like I need time. I just am slow. Things that shouldn't take me that long, I feel like, just take me so much longer. It's like, a shower, and it should take like 10 minutes, and that's like 20, 30. So I just realized I need that time. So I try to wake up a little early to do that. And then I always eat breakfast on my way in, because I know I'm not going to get the chance to eat it. I've never been the person who's able to time their morning appropriately, where they get time at work to eat breakfast. I just never time it correctly. I just don't. I'm always in awe of those people who are like, okay, I have 10 minutes. And I'm like, how do you pick this? Like, the list is already like, yay, hi. I already feel like I'm behind. And you're like, I'm going to take my brunch. I'm like, okay.
I'm like, God, just bring me a coffee on your way back. I need it.
No. And I eat the same thing every time, because I feel like you have to like go into that. I feel like I'm superstitious in weird ways.
What are you eating? What is the thing?
It's just a gluten-free English muffin with some chicken sausage. It's just the same thing every day on the way in.
Tea or coffee person?
I'm a tea person. I don't like the taste of coffee. Can't stand it.
To each their own.
Yeah.
And then, so on the funner things in life, what does Johanna do for the joy in her life? I mean, you did just get a second dog, so it sounds like that seems like, I don't know if that's more work than joy, but you got the 2 sets of dogs now.
She's starting off as more work, but she'll settle in. She's still a puppy, so it's just we have to get through the puppy stage, which we hadn't been in the puppy stage with the dog for quite a while. We've always had dogs, and so we were down to one, and then we were like, oh, maybe he's a little lonely too. The kids are here, but they're not really. And then we're like, let's get a puppy. And my husband was like, it's gonna be fine. And I was like, it's gonna be a lot of work. And then we were looking at like small dogs. I've never been a small dog person, so I was like, ooh, look at this like 45-pound puppy. And he's like, yeah, look at her. So she has been a joy, but also a teacher. They said she's like a shepherd mix, but we're trying to figure out what she is. She's very smart, and her favorite thing is to take random objects from our house and put them in the backyard. So every night we have to do a sweep of the backyard to find out what items she's taken out there. She's trying to take our area rug out there, but she can't get it through the dog door. Yeah, she can't get it to fit through the dog door. So we keep finding it like halfway out, having to pull it back in.
At least she's consistent.
No.
So, any TV movies that you have recently watched that truly liked, or that has just been with you a long time? I want to know something that's like a Johanna thing.
So, personally, I like mindless TV on my own. I feel like when I work, I'm thinking too much. So when I watch TV by myself, the more mindless, the better. So Bravo is my channel. The housewives are my people.
Okay.
And I think that surprises people, but I just love the mindlessness of it, because it's just like, oh, like these are their problems. Like I would never ever be in that situation, but like I almost wish I could be in that life, but I really just want to be on the side. I don't even want to be in there. So I just like to mindless. But when I am trying to watch something to appeal to everybody, we're watching The Witcher, which
right now, that's what you're doing.
Is outside of my normal watching, but it was very good. I was very surprised by the first season.
Oh, well, good for you guys. Good for you. I'm pretty sure I saw something about I haven't gotten into it at all, but I thought I saw like new episodes. I think it's on, is it the season 3
the
or 4 that's out now?
The second
season.
The second season just came out.
Okay, well, good. And then lastly, are you reading anything these days?
I'm in reading. Again, I read like I'm like a weird person with the reading. I like either like completely mindless, like a romance novel, or I'm reading like I was reading all these books about parenting and about like all these things like that. Non-fiction ones. Yeah, and again, it's just I think it also made me just empathize with humans overall too, because I don't remember what it's called. It's like The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog, and it's just all these like trauma-based. This like psychologist who invented the whole like trust-based group, and like very interesting mix of stories of like how there basically was no like child psychology. Like they thought that children just could be exposed to all these stressors and then they'll be fine. And but this like psychologist who wrote the book actually, like the Waco, you know, that whole where the cold
Texas, Waco, Texas. The
Waco
was on fire and they stood down for
and they pulled all those kids out of there.
Yes.
So he was called in to be like the psychiatrist for those kids.
Wow.
And so he kind of talks about that, but he also talks about like literally like another child was raised as a dog. Like he was put with the person who was like mentally disabled and was raising dogs. And so he just put the toddler in that same group, and then they couldn't figure out why, like, oh, this child like won't respond to anything, and they had to be like, well, this is what he's been exposed to. We have to take this into consideration. Or like children who do go towards violence, like why did they do it? Was it like a parenting choice? And then he was like, well, you can see like the mom or the dad chose to show no affection, and by showing no affection, maybe something was already going on, but it just like hardened. I don't know. The book is very interesting overall.
I literally wrote it down. The boy was raised as a dog. I wrote it down.
It just makes you look at people and you're like, oh, like your environment, it does have an effect.
Much.
Like,
of course it
you don't realize it. Yeah.
A lot of the time.
But they're like, oh, kids are resilient. They'll be fine. It won't affect you when you grow up. And it's like, no, even now I'm like looking back and I'm like, well, that happened to me, and I guess I'm still like, figuring it out. So, okay.
Just working through it, right? Or just forgetting that it happened. At least trying to.
So it comes back.
Johanna, I really, really do appreciate this. I don't know. Do you have any social media that you'd like to shout out?
No, I don't know. No.
No, yeah. If you do, great. And if you do, just send like a text or an email with the handle, and then I could just have it on the screen at some point or in the description box below. Like I said earlier, just let me know if there's ever an issue with anything, and then I'll cut it all out. But seriously, thank you so much for this. I really do appreciate it, especially
Thank you.
half of it. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And tell 5 West, is it 5C?
5C.
Tell 5C, Renee and I say hello.
Hello. Will do.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.